The Galactic Superiority Council's chrome-plated conference room hummed with the kind of tension that usually preceded the annexation of solar systems. 300 species had gathered for what the media dubbed the Great Humbling, though none expected to be humbled themselves. The human question must be resolved, declared Chancellor Vorthik, his 7 eyes scanning the assembled delegates. Their planet produces nothing of value, yet they refuse subjugation. They claim their daily life is too complex for superior beings to understand. Laughter rippled through the chamber, a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses that would have shattered human eardrums. The very notion was absurd. Humans couldn't even leave their own solar system without primitive chemical rockets. "I propose we accept their ridiculous challenge," announced Vextar the warrior, his crimson exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial suns. 24 hours in their primitive habitat. "I conquered the fortress worlds of Kepler 442b in less time." Zephyra the intellect, her crystalline form refracting light into mathematical equations, pulsed with amusement. "Their neural patterns operate at 0.003% efficiency compared to our computational matrix. I've solved problems that drove artificial intelligences to madness." From the shadows stepped Crawl the survivalist, his adaptive biology shifting between forms like living mercury. "I've thrived on planets where the atmosphere turns metal to vapor. Their temperate rock should pose no challenge whatsoever." The challenge had originated from a teenage human named Riley Martinez, who'd posted a TikTok video titled, "Aliens think they're so smart? Try surviving one normal day on Earth." The video had somehow reached the galactic network, where it was viewed 47 billion times across 200 species. The comment section became a battleground of interstellar pride. "The terms are simple," continued Chancellor Vorthik, consulting his holographic display. "They must experience one complete human day cycle, awakening at 0600 hours, commuting to employment, completing 8 hours of their work, procuring sustenance, preparing nutrition, and engaging in their social rituals. No technology beyond what humans typically access." The 3 champions exchanged confident glances. Vextar had led armadas across the Andromeda spiral. Zephyra had calculated the gravitational harmonics of entire galaxies. Crawl had survived in environments that would instantly kill most carbon-based life. How difficult could it be to mimic the routine of a species that hadn't even achieved interstellar travel? "The location will be Cleveland, Ohio," announced the Chancellor. "Analysis suggests it represents the statistical average of human urban environments." "Cleveland?" Zephyra's crystalline form flickered with curiosity. The humans seemed to have strong emotional reactions to this designation. "Irrelevant," Vextar growled. "We'll complete their challenge in half the allotted time and return to important matters." The galactic press swarmed the story. Betting pools opened across star systems. The odds heavily favored the alien champions. Some bookmakers offered 10,000 to 1 against the possibility of failure. After all, these were beings who had mastered faster-than-light travel, conquered death itself, and unraveled the mysteries of dark matter. What they hadn't considered was that mastering the universe was nothing compared to mastering the art of being human for a single day. The molecular transporters deposited the 3 champions in a suburban Cleveland duplex at exactly 5:59 a.m. Their consciousness transferred into carefully constructed human avatars. The Galactic Council's bioengineers had done excellent work. Vextar resembled a middle-aged office worker. Zephyra appeared as a professional woman in her 30s, and Crawl had been given the form of the fitness enthusiast. The alarm clock exploded into their consciousness like a sonic weapon. "What is this auditory assault?" Vextar roared, his enhanced hearing making the simple beeping sound like a war siren. He instinctively reached for weapons that weren't there, his warrior instincts screaming danger. Zephyr's superior intellect immediately calculated the sound's frequency, amplitude, and mathematical properties, but somehow missed the simple solution of turning it off. The acoustic pattern suggests urgency, but I detect no immediate threats. The logical response is unclear. Kroll, whose adaptive biology had survived in the vacuum of space, found himself overwhelmed by the sensory input of a human body. Can feel my heart beating. Why can I feel my heart beating? Is this normal? I think I'm dying. The morning routine, which billions of humans navigated unconsciously, became an exercise in existential terror. Vextar spent 20 minutes trying to optimize the toothbrushing process, convinced there must be a more efficient pattern. He ended up brushing his teeth in military formation, barking commands at his reflection. Zephyra approached showering. Like a scientific experiment, calculating optimal water temperature, pressure, and duration. She emerged 30 minutes later, having used every bottle in the bathroom, her hair now resembling a chemical experiment gone wrong. Kroll, whose body could adapt to any environment, found himself completely unprepared for the complexity of human. Breakfast choices. The refrigerator contained dozens of options, each with different nutritional profiles, preparation requirements, and mysterious expiration dates. He stood paralyzed before the orange juice, trying to understand why humans would voluntarily consume acidic citrus extract. This is more complex than intergalactic warfare, Vextar muttered, struggling with a coffee maker that seemed designed by sadists. At least enemies follow logical tactical patterns. The commute loomed ahead like a final boss battle. According to their briefing, they needed to travel 12.3 miles through something called rush hour traffic to reach their assigned workplace. How hard could it be to move from point A to point B? The answer, as they were about to discover, was that it wasn't about the destination. It was about surviving the journey while maintaining the illusion of sanity. Ready for the next phase? Zephyra asked, her confidence already showing hairline. Cracks. How much time has elapsed? Kroll wondered aloud. Vextar checked his human timepiece. 47 minutes. They stared at each other in growing horror. They had 23 hours and 13 minutes remaining. Asterisk, the rental car sat in the driveway, like a mechanical predator, its steel body gleaming with morning dew. The three champions approached it with the caution usually reserved for approaching black holes. Transportation appears straightforward, Zephyra announced, her intellect already cataloging the vehicle's specifications. 4 wheels, internal. Combustion engine. Basic navigation systems. Primitive but functional. Vextar climbed into the driver's seat, his warrior instincts immediately assessing the cockpit. Simple control interface. Forward, reverse, steering mechanism. I've piloted star destroyers with more complex. The engine roared to life, and suddenly they were moving. Vextar, accustomed to the precise controls of spacecraft, pressed the accelerator with the same force he'd used to initiate warp drive. The car shot forward like a missile, tires screaming against asphalt. Tactical maneuvering. He shouted, yanking the wheel hard left to avoid a mailbox. The car fishtailed wildly, barely missing a parked sedan. Reduce velocity. Zephyra screamed, her crystalline intellect calculating their trajectory toward a neighbor's lawn flamingo. The physics don't support this acceleration. Kroll, whose body had adapted to countless hostile environments, found himself completely unprepared for the sensation of motion sickness. I think I'm malfunctioning. My internal organs are rebelling against physics. 20 minutes later, they finally reached the on-ramp to I-90. What they saw there defied all logic, strategy, and reason. Thousands of metal death machines moved in seemingly random patterns at high velocity, their human operators apparently engaged in some form of elaborate dance with mortality. Cars merged without warning, switched lanes without apparent purpose, and somehow maintained formation while traveling at speeds that should have resulted in immediate catastrophic failure. "This is a war zone," Vextar whispered, his warrior. "Training failing to identify any tactical advantage. But who's fighting whom? What are the objectives?" Zephyra's superior intellect tried to calculate the mathematical probabilities of the traffic patterns before them. The variables are infinite. Speed, trajectory, human psychology, mechanical tolerances, weather conditions, caffeine levels. I can't process all the incoming. Krull shouted as a Honda Civic driven by a teenager, texting about breakfast burritos, swerved into their lane with millimeters to spare. Vextar's combat reflexes kicked in. He swerved, accelerated, then slammed the brakes, sending the car into a controlled skid that would have impressed professional stunt drivers. Unfortunately, it also sent them spinning across 2 lanes of traffic before coming to rest in the emergency lane. Facing the wrong direction, cars honked a cacophony of human frustration that somehow conveyed complex emotional states through variations in pitch and duration. Some drivers gestured with their hands, creating what appeared to be a primitive form of sign language that mostly involved middle fingers. "They're trying to communicate," Zephyra gasped, her intellect reeling from the sensory overload. "But the meanings are hostile? Celebratory? I can't distinguish between territorial displays and greeting rituals." A Ohio State Highway Patrol officer pulled up behind them, his lights flashing in patterns that seemed designed to induce seizures. Officer Martinez, the same last name as the teenager who'd started this whole mess, approached their window, with the weary expression of someone who'd seen everything Cleveland had to offer. "Morning, folks," he said, his tone suggesting this was not his first encounter with confused out-of-state drivers. "Everything okay here?" Vextar, drawing on his diplomatic training from 12 conquered worlds, attempted to explain. "Greetings, local authority figure. We are ... tourists. Experiencing navigation difficulties with your your sophisticated transportation infrastructure." Officer Martinez stared at them for a long moment. "Sir, are you under the influence of any substances?" "Only coffee," Krull replied honestly. "It's more powerful than we anticipated. By some miracle involving extensive police guidance and 3 tow trucks, the champions finally reached their destination, a generic office building that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd heard about architecture, but never actually seen it. The lobby's fluorescent lights hummed with the frequency of barely contained madness. "Welcome to Synergy Solutions," chirped the receptionist, a human female whose smile seemed surgically attached to her face. "You must be the new consultants. I'm Ashley, and I'm just super excited to have you join our team." The 3 champions exchanged glances. They'd faced down galactic tyrants with less obvious threat displays. "Your supervisor is Mike," Ashley continued, her enthusiasm radiating like background radiation. "He's in conference room B, setting up for the morning alignment meeting to discuss the upcoming strategy session about the quarterly planning retreat." Zephyra's crystalline intellect, which had solved mathematical theorems that drove A is insane, tried to parse this sentence. "The meeting is about other meetings?" "Oh, yes." Ashley beamed. "We're very thorough about our meeting infrastructure. We like to meet about our meetings before we meet about meeting about them." Vextar, who had conquered 12 worlds through superior military strategy, felt his warrior's mind beginning to crack. What is the objective?" "Synergy," Ashley exclaimed, as if this explained everything. Conference room B was a beige purgatory filled with humans sitting around an oval table, each staring at glowing rectangles, while occasionally nodding at whatever Mike was saying. Mike himself was a middle-aged human whose PowerPoint presentation seemed to violate several laws of physics by somehow containing negative amounts of information. So if we circle back to the synergistic optimization paradigm Mike was saying, we can leverage our core competencies to ideate some blue-sky solutions for our customer-facing deliverables. Zephyr's intellect, which had calculated the gravitational harmonics of entire galaxies, began to short-circuit. These words, they have meanings individually, but together they create a semantic vacuum. It's like dividing by zero, but with language. Now let's break into smaller groups, Mike announced, to workshop some actionable takeaways that we can circle back on during our follow-up alignment session. Kroll, whose adaptive biology had survived in environments that would instantly kill most carbon-based life, found himself developing what humans called a migraine. His body was trying to adapt to the hostile environment of corporate jargon, but couldn't identify what exactly it was adapting to. I volunteer to lead the ideation process, announced Janet from accounting, a human whose voice could strip paint. I've prepared a preliminary framework for our brainstorming methodology. And then came the moment that broke them. Janet unveiled a flowchart of visual representation of their meeting process that included 17 different types of meetings, each with sub-meetings, pre-meetings, and post-meeting meetings. The chart looked like a mad scientist's attempt to map the neural pathways of an insane god. This is how we ensure maximum productivity, Janet explained proudly. By the time we've completed the full cycle, we'll have met about meeting about. Our meetings so thoroughly that we'll know exactly what we need to meet about next. Vextar, the warrior who had stared down the armies of 12 worlds, began to sob. I don't understand the rules of engagement. Who are we fighting? What are we trying to accomplish? Why does everything require a follow-up meeting? The other humans looked at him with the kind of understanding usually reserved for shared trauma survivors. First corporate job? Asked Dave from IT. Don't worry, you'll go numb after a few months. Numb? Kroll whispered, his voice breaking. That's not adaptation. That's just giving up. 3 hours into what was supposed to be a simple 24-hour challenge, the 3 most accomplished beings in the galaxy found themselves huddled in a supply closet, questioning everything they thought they knew about civilization, intelligence, and the meaning of existence itself. We have to call for extraction, Vextar whispered. This isn't a challenge. This is psychological warfare. The emergency beacon activated at 9:47 a.m., sending a distress signal that reached the Galactic Council faster than light itself. Within minutes, the rescue team materialized in the supply closet, finding 3 of the galaxy's most accomplished beings curled up among boxes of printer paper, muttering about synergistic paradigms and actionable deliverables. Champions? Called Captain Zarian, the rescue team leader, his voice filled with concern. Are you injured? Under attack? Worse, Vextar whispered, his warrior's spirit completely shattered. We've been ... optimized. The extraction was swift, but not swift. Enough to prevent the humans from documenting everything. Riley Martinez, the teenager whose TikTok had started this whole mess, had somehow tracked down the office building and was live-streaming the entire rescue operation. Guys, she shouted into her phone camera, the aliens are literally being carried. Out on stretchers. They couldn't even handle a morning meeting. The video went viral instantly, not just on human social media, but across the entire galactic network. Within hours, #AlienChallengeFail was trending on 47 different worlds, with reaction videos pouring in from species across the galaxy. I can't believe they surrendered after 3 hours, laughed Zorbek the Conqueror, the feared tyrant of the Andromeda Spiral. I've been watching their traffic patterns for entertainment. It's better than gladiatorial combat. The mathematical complexity of their breakfast choices, added Dr. Quintex, the galaxy's leading computational theorist, exceeds the calculations required for faster-than-light travel. How do they make decisions? Back on Earth, Riley found herself accidentally running the galaxy's first interplanetary tourism industry. Alien thrill-seekers began arriving in droves, desperate to attempt the human experience challenge. What had been intended as a simple dare had become the ultimate extreme sport. "Welcome to Earth Extreme Adventures," Riley announced to a group of Centaurian diplomats who'd come to test their mettle against parallel parking. "Today we'll be attempting the legendary IKEA Furniture Assembly Challenge, followed by the death-defying Explain Cryptocurrency to Your Parents experience." The Centaurians, who had mastered interstellar commerce and quantum economics, spent 4 hours trying to assemble a bookshelf named Björksnes before declaring it impossible and demanding to speak to Sweden's military leaders. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was forced to completely revise their understanding of human civilization. A species that could casually navigate traffic patterns that broke supercomputers, survive 8-hour meetings that drove telepaths insane, and somehow maintain sanity while choosing between 47 different breakfast cereals was clearly more advanced than anyone had imagined. The humans have mastered the art of making impossibly complex challenges appear routine, Chancellor Vorthuk announced to the assembled delegates. They've weaponized banality. They've turned survival into such an art form that they don't even recognize their own achievement. "But how do they do it?" asked Zephyra, still recovering from her encounter with corporate jargon. "How do they maintain consciousness while discussing quarterly planning retreats?" "That," replied Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, "is what we call being human. We've been training for this our entire lives. Every traffic jam, every pointless meeting, every attempt to assemble furniture with wordless instructions, it's all part of our species' greatest achievement." "Which is?" asked Vextar, his warrior pride slowly returning. "Learning to find meaning and joy in the midst of beautifully organized chaos." Elena smiled. "You tried to conquer our challenge. We live it, and somehow most of us still manage to laugh at the end of the day." The three champions looked at each other, then at the humans around them, and finally understood what they'd been up against. It wasn't about the difficulty of the tasks. It was about the incredible resilience required to make the impossible look mundane. "Rematch?" Vextar asked hopefully. "Maybe start with a weekend," Riley suggested. "Work your way up to a full Monday." The greatest warriors in the galaxy shuddered at the thought. Asterisk.